Welcome to our second class in July. My name is Leslie Myers. For those of you I haven't met before, I think I recognize a lot of the names that are coming into the classroom. I kind of listen to what everybody's been requesting, and I am going to be featuring low carbohydrate recipes. So these are keto-friendly recipes for those of you just looking to eat lower in carbohydrates. You know, I always teach from a place of eat more of this, not don't eat that. So I would never tell you don't eat carbs, carbs are bad, because first of all, that's bad information and it's not exactly true. Everybody's style of eating and what works well for them to feel their best is very, very different. I'm gonna start by cooking flank steak, just a very, very simple preparation. And I'm working in my kitchen, and I'm not using a grill or anything outside. So I'm just gonna start it by sauteing in a pan and then finishing it in the oven. This is the same way I would cook a chicken breast or salmon, except that the cooking time on flank steak is a little lower. So let me grab that. So you can see the flank steak. I'm gonna hold it up here. You can see these sort of grains here, and we're gonna cut crosswise when we cut this. And depending on how you like your steak, whether you like it rare, raise your hand or put it in the chat. You like rare, you like medium rare, you like it so well done, there's nothing red. I'd be curious as to what people's personal preferences are if you do indeed like steak. On the recipe on the site, I actually listed the cooking times for those temperatures: medium, rare, medium, and well done. But the idea is that you get a saute pan, kind of going on medium high. So I'm adding a little bit of olive oil to this pan, but not necessarily, no stick pans or cast iron pans. You might be able to get away with not doing so. And then on the steak, and you can do this about 20 minutes prior to cooking it. Any longer, the salt will actually draw the moisture out of the steak. So I'm gonna salt and pepper both sides of this. And my pan is feeling pretty hot now. This is about ½ an inch. It's kind of on the thinner side for flank steak. Let me give you a visual right here. It's pretty skinny. So I would say it's a little thinner than a chicken breast, than most chicken breasts. And I'm gonna put this in the pan for just about 1 to 2 minutes, depending on how hot your pan is and how thin your steak is. The idea is just to get some browning on one side for flavor. Okay, Tuesday I'll watch over that for us. So this is just cooking, getting a little browning. I got my oven on at 350. Now, if I were just put this directly in the oven, you'd end up with kind of beige colored meat on the outside. So I'm going for a little browning by cooking it this way. Pair of tongs. If you, we're going to add to the VEBA resource list. My whole sort of, if you were to outfit your kitchen, sort of the 10 or 12 things you could have and different price points for each item. One of my recommendations is a pair of tongs. I use these all the time. I have 3 pairs. I usually just rotate through. Okay, I'm flipping this over because I'm seeing some browning. And I'm going to turn off that heat, and I'm going to just add a little more salt and pepper. And this would be the time, if you wanted sort of a rub or a dried spice on this, to put it on top. You don't want to put the spice on and then turn it over in the pan, because those spices will burn. So you put it on top of this. It's going to pop in the oven for about 7 minutes. Instead of using traditional pasta noodles, lasagna noodles, we're going to use some eggplant for this recipe. And then in that eggplant, we're going to be layering it with tomato sauce and ricotta, a little mozzarella, Parmesan cheese. I'm going to flavor that ricotta with some black pepper and some oregano, and then bake it. We're going to circle back to eggs because this is an ingredient in the lasagna filling. It's a ricotta filling, and I have whole milk ricotta, which I put into a bowl. But you need to put something such as an egg in that ricotta, because if I didn't, the ricotta would be really loose and watery and wouldn't really set up in lasagna. An egg, when it cooks, as you know from looking at a hard-boiled egg, it tightens up. So in baking, eggs are the things that bring all the wet ingredients together, as does the flour. And so we're going to be adding an egg. And I'm always out on the prowl looking for different kinds of quality products. And I came across this today, and it was the same price as the eggs I normally buy. On the higher side, but not the highest I've ever seen. But of course, their marketing was genius, right? Happy Eggs, Heritage. They're really pretty colors. You open them up, you're like, oh, those are gorgeous. And then they said amber yolks. And I said, oh, that's interesting. So these chickens must have a lot of access to grasses and things like that that are high in beta carotene, because it carries over to the color of their yolks. And let me show that to you. And so what that means from a health standpoint is it's a healthier egg. So first of all, this is a pretty thick shell, which means that chicken had a lot of good nutrients. And secondly, if you look at this egg, it's like taxi cab yellow. And that's can you see that okay? I know I'm looking at Beverly's face, looking for the nod, if you can see it okay. But that sort of taxi cab yellow is indicative of chicken that's been fed really well. So the omega-3 fatty acids are higher, which are great for you for inflammation. The beta carotene is higher, the choline is usually higher, and typically the cholesterol is lower in those eggs. I'm not saying it doesn't have cholesterol, it's just a little bit lower. And we talked about this last week, so I'll just reiterate that point. But why this is important for you is if you buy eggs that come from healthy chickens, and you can buy those in Trader Joe's and Target and Walmart and also all the grocery stores, the nutrients are about 40% higher, I think is what the science papers had said. So for me, paying $1 or $2 more for eggs just to get that quality is worth it. So what I'm gonna do is take my ricotta mixture. I'm gonna whisk together this, this egg into it. Break it up first in here. How many of you like eggplant? And how many of you hate eggplant? Let's take a poll. There's got to be a couple people, because people were requesting recipes who like it. Love it. And share any recipes you might make with it, because we were talking about the little skinny Japanese eggplants cut in half and brushed with miso, which is a really nice way, really simple. So we got that all whisking, and then I'm going to take about a cup of the cup and a half of shredded mozzarella. Now here's kind of a fun fact about shredded cheeses. If you buy cheese pre-shredded, it doesn't stick together, right? And the reason is they usually coat it in a little bit of rice powder. So there's that aspect, which will make any filling or macaroni and cheese thicker. And if I took the time to just kind of shred this plain mozzarella. Now, for those of you who have managed to take a look at the recipes already, we just grab this first. This is our flank steak. Let that rest. Ahead of time, I had to slice the eggplant and then I put it on a sheet pan with some olive oil and salt. And then I wiped a little bit of that salt off, and then I put this in the oven at 375 and baked it so it was soft. Now, the first one I made of these when I was recipe testing it, I cut the eggplant in rounds. That seemed like an easier way to kind of put a 3-layer stack, and then you could serve that little stack of eggplant lasagna that was nice and pretty and round. What I found that was a little bit challenging is kind of cutting through the skin at one point with a fork. So it's kind of a personal preference. It's a nuance, but when you cut it in rounds, you can make individual stacks which serve in kind of neat little piles. But this one I'm gonna layer like this. So these have already been cooked for about 15, 20 minutes. A baking pan. We're gonna add just a little bit of red sauce at the bottom to keep it from sticking. And this is a marinara sauce that does not contain any sugar. I'm not married to any of these brands. I hate to get up here and say, eat this or eat that, but what you've got to be looking for is a marinara sauce or a tomato sauce that doesn't contain any sugar, because there's natural sugar in the tomatoes and the onions, and to a lesser degree, the garlic. And that, in my opinion, is enough, but everybody's sugar levels and sensitivities are different. If you buy a product, typically like a lower end pasta sauce, and you taste it against something like this, that lower end one typically will taste really sweet. And then you look at the label and it says ingredients, tomatoes, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, and you're like, oh my gosh, really? In my dinner, I'm having high fructose corn syrup. So if you're not already and you're tuned into trying to eat a little healthier and pasta sauce is your thing, just be a label reader. I do avoid the ones with sugar. I'm not saying that you should never have sugar. I'm just saying I think this is a better product, and go get your sugar and some fun dessert, you know, down the road. Okay, so a little of this at the bottom. And I've got ricotta, Parmesan, mozzarella, oregano, black pepper. I'm going to take a few of my eggplant and layer these. And this is where I wish we were all back at our VEBA kitchen doing our thing together. You all could be helping me with this. I'm sorry that we're not there. The other thing I would say with this is you could actually put a little bit of ground meat in here as well. There's no rhyme or reason. If you're somebody who likes meat, then just put it into this. This happens to be a vegetarian dish by design. It is also a gluten-free dish by design. And when I was teaching at the center full time, we made it a point to keep our recipes there gluten-free, and not because I'm gluten-free or I'm saying don't eat gluten. It's just that there were enough people with gluten sensitivities that we just made it a practice. So I just added a little more marinara sauce on top, a little more ricotta. Now I'm going to repeat that process again with my lasagna layers. So you get nice, creamy, cheesy taste against the acidic tomato sauce, which is really, really complimentary in my opinion. And then you go over with your last little bit of marinara here. And we'll repeat it one more time, tucking in an extra piece on top. You know, the way I grew up kind of eating traditional food that was cooked in the 70s is eggplant Parmesan was a thing. But what you had to do there is you had to bread the eggplant. That's a whole process, a whole extra step. You know, if you've seen me long enough in action, you know that I'm a little bit lazy and I like quick recipes that are healthy and taste good. And the idea of taking all the eggplant and breading it and laying it out and then going back and creating lasagna seems like an extra step. So here I am, just about to put the last layer of cheese on. So, and then you're going to cover this with foil. And I'm just going to use kind of a little repurpose here. I'm going to repurpose the foil that the eggplant roasted on and just flip it back over. And don't go too tightly on it. You don't want it to stick necessarily. And you're going to cook it about 15, 20 minutes with the foil on, remove it, and then let it cook another 15, 20 minutes. And what that does is it'll brown the top and the excess moisture will come out of it. Basic vinaigrette. If you have attended some of my classes down at the center, I teach this a lot. I like to teach how to make your own salad dressing. And the reason I teach this is because most dressings have about 28 ingredients in them if you buy them commercially. And I'm kind of, you know, you look at the ingredient list and you're like, okay, yeah, it's got oil, it's got, you know, an egg yolk in it, it's got some spices, it's got some chives, it's got some mustard, it's got some vinegar, it's got some sodium diphosphate, it's got something else, something chemical, I don't even know what that is, monosodium glutamate, what? You know, and those are all things I don't keep in my pantry. And so for just this sort of innocuous salad dressing, it's a lot of chemicals going on. And I'm not here to say don't buy bottled salad dressing, because if that's the way you get to eat a salad, then great. I just kind of go back to the basics and strip it down and make my own. So the difference between like a vinaigrette, like an Italian dressing, or a thick and creamy dressing like a ranch or buttermilk is the addition of an egg yolk makes it creamy. So if I added an egg yolk to this, we would have creamy dressing. It's not adding a whole bunch of cream. So the way you make this is you use 3 parts oil, and I'm using an olive oil here, to 1 to 2 parts acid. Now acid can be anything like apple cider vinegar, sherry vinegar, lemon juice, lemon and orange juice combined. Balsamic vinegar is probably the one we see a lot of. So what we have here is 3 parts oil to 1 part Sherry vinegar has a nice nutty flavor. Balsamic vinegar, white vinegar, raspberry vinegar. There are lots of peach vinegars, things like that. Where you guys went. And a tiny bit of sweetener. In this case, agave nectar is really, really liquid. You could use honey, you could use maple syrup. I just happen to have this. And flavoring agents. A little bit of chopped garlic. You know, if you have been coming to my classes, you know I buy my garlic chopped typically, just because it frees up time for me to do fun projects like make strawberry ice cream. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and then I want to make this a mustard and chive flavored dressing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add mustard, and what this will do is both emulsify it, which means hold the oil and vinegar in suspension, and it also adds a flavoring agent. And then I'm going to add some fresh chives to this. And then I'm going to shake it up. Make sure you put your finger on top. Lasagna, it depends if you like a really acidic dressing or if you like it a little more oil forward. I usually go with 3 to 1. That's how I like my dressings. But most people will, if you went to Europe, for example, they like really acidic dressings over there. So they tend to trend more up toward the 2 level on the ratio. But there's what you have, your dressing. See how it's emulsified, meaning the oil and vinegar are combined, and that will hold. And what emulsifies that is the garlic and the mustard. They just have the chemical compounds to do that, as well as their great flavor. I'm going to hold this for a minute and grab the flank steak to show you. And also, over here. So this is what we have coming out of here. Yum. This piece. What I did just because I was teaching other parts of this class, but it was also because I wanted that steak to rest for a little bit. And why? The reason I have it rest is if you were to take a steak or something else right off a grill and immediately cut into it, the juices go everywhere. If you let it rest, those juices weave themselves back into all the fibers of the meat, and you don't lose as much when you cut into it. It stays juicier. The larger the piece of meat, the longer it rests before you eat it, and it really doesn't lose that much heat. So if you've ever cooked a turkey for Thanksgiving, it might say let that turkey rest for, sometimes it's like 40 minutes, really, so all those juices weave themselves back into that turkey. Let's see what we have going on here. I'm going to add gloves to the list of things I keep in my kitchen, because I do pull them out all the time. So this is like a nice sort of medium steak. And my dog is laying here on the floor, inching his way over here, hoping to move into this. So ribbon cut. Ribbon cut is referred to in the culinary world as chiffonade, which I think sounds a little pretentious. Hello, I'm gonna chiffonade some lettuce for you. But what it means is to take delicate leaves of something, in this case basil, mint, lettuce, and you cut them in ribbons. And the easiest way to do this is take 6 or 8 leaves of something and stack them all the same way, and then roll them like a little cigar. See my little cigar? And then you want a really sharp knife, and this is where it comes down to the details, because if you've ever seen basil or mint, which are very delicate, sort of start turning black on the sides, it's because your knife is a little more dull, and you're just not getting that clean slice through. I mean, it's a nuance. It doesn't usually happen right away, but what it means is it's oxidizing. And then I'm just going to cut through at about, I would say, 1/8 of an inch. And then what these little guys do is they unfurl, and you have really easy ribbon cut. So you're not cutting 1 leaf at a time, then 1 leaf at a time, then 1 leaf at a time. Let me prop this guy up right here. This is our lasagna. I think that works. And let's try a serving of this. Let's see what this is all about. So this one is the one I did in rounds. And so it's a little more user-friendly to get out of the pan because it kind of portions itself on its own. And you've got eggplant, which is vegetable, high in fiber. So I think for anybody trying is, you know, low carb kind of, see there's a second piece right there that got looped onto it. What you're looking at is something like this. I would eat this for breakfast because I like savory food for breakfast. That's just me. And then the ricotta kind of tightened up because of that addition of an egg in it. And knowing me, I would actually probably triple the amount of basil because I like things really flavorful. And I think basil right now, especially in the summer, is super flavorful. And you can just, if you chill this down, you can microwave it and heat it back up but individually. One of the best things you can do for healthy eating, if you do nothing else, is on most days, make yourself a ginormous salad for one of your meals. I am not past having a salad for breakfast. I have wanted one. It's not all the time, but every now and then I'll have like a big salad for breakfast. It happens. Traditionally, lunch or dinner is more the point, and this will probably end up being what Jeff and I, there's so many great people on this call today. I love these comments coming back. I can actually see them. And I'm glad there's some like-minded people. I feel like we should have a private Facebook group called Salads for Breakfast. We can all share it. So anyway, I took some romaine lettuce, some spinach, and cabbage and put those together and cut off a small piece and throw in to whatever you're cooking, whether it's a coleslaw, whether it's your smoothie, whether it's just making your salad prettier and it's purple. And back to Sonia's other comment about pizza and salad for breakfast, totally agree. And one step further, there was a restaurant where I used to live in Alexandria, Virginia, that you'd order a pizza and say it was this round, and then they'd put a mound of salad on it, and that's how it came out to your table. I thought that was a pretty good idea. But I never say don't eat pizza, don't eat that. I will just say eat more salad. So however you choose to get it into your day. And now we're gonna take that dressing and just coat the leaves a little bit. So I always start with a little freshly ground pepper, add a little salt. And now the trick to dressing salad, has anybody ever gone to a restaurant and had an overdressed salad where like it happens with arugula at the time, but it just like wilts and then there's this pool of dressing at the bottom of your plate? I'm like, oh gosh, that's a bummer. So the way you avoid that at home, your natural inclination would just be to dump this on the salad as much as you think and toss it. And it's probably going to be too much. So what I usually do is I start out real light with like a teaspoon or two, and then I just do it as a two-step process. I coat all the lettuce, and so it's just has a little bit of sheen on it. And that's kind of like, okay, now I know not to pour too much on it. Then I add a tiny bit more. The rest of this will go in my fridge and be used at another time. Beauty of your own dressing. So then I have my ginormous salad. It looks better already just because we added the red cabbage to it. Now, proteins. I think I wrote this recipe with chicken, and my suggestion to being time efficient was, you know, when you've gone to Costco or you've gone to a grocery store, you've purchased a whole roast chicken, and then you eat one breast, and then the next day, you know, you still have that like 3/4 of a carcass. This would be a great use to like pull the other side off and add some of the colder leftover roasted chicken. This happens to be roasted chicken thighs. I usually will cook 6 of them at a time and leave them in the fridge. But or chicken breast, or we could say, hey, Les, you just made flank steak. Why don't you throw that on the salad instead? It doesn't really matter. It's your personal preference. So recipe was written with chicken. We actually have flank steak. You could do both. There's no right or wrong. It's all preference. I'm gonna go with a steak because we just cooked it. So we'll add that. And then all the things that make it healthy, and then things that make it fun, and a little in between. So we've got steak. We've got some beautiful and seasoned like Swedish sugar cherry tomatoes to go on top. Classically, a Cobb salad has a lot of times green beans on it. In my opinion, you have to go and you have to cook the green beans and cool them down. It's a lot of steps. So I think I threw celery in this recipe instead because I usually have it on hand. But just another green product. This could also be sliced cucumbers. And then we're gonna do a little blue cheese to go against this with the steak and tomatoes. Those are pretty classic combinations. This is the second recipe in a week I've taught with blue cheese. Feta cheese, if blue cheese is not your thing, cheddar cheese, leave it out if you're dairy free. But classically, the Cobb salad has blue cheese. Oh, and then these are our perfectly cooked eggs from last week. They actually lasted. You see the yolks are beautiful, no gray. And you can do half or you could do full depending on how hungry you are. And what I usually do with those is I'll just usually add a little extra salt and pepper onto the eggs. And then avocado. A little bit of avocado on the Cobb salad, so you've got another healthy fat going on here. You can just take that out with your knife. And some sprouts. I would tell you, it's one of those like apple a day, like that's one thing, but sprouts a day, like serving of sprouts a day probably really keeps the doctor away. Because these are little powerhouses of nutrients that just grow up to be like a thing of broccoli. So you can get those on a salad, do it, keep them around. And that is your beautiful summer, gorgeous, healthy Cobb salad. I've got a husky drooling over here, waiting for this to happen. So what you have going on, back to how I always talk about things, is carbohydrates with fiber, or AKA complex carbohydrates in these tomatoes. You know, this is still low carb. It's probably not, you know, no carb, because I know this is a lot, Andrea, isn't it? Because it does, tomatoes have some carbohydrates, but they have a lot of fiber, and I think you really can't, fiber will trump carbohydrates any day. Then you have the eggs, and you have steak, and you have some bacon and blue cheese and avocado and sprouts. There you go. So my challenge to you, I would love to see somebody do this, is if you want to take some pictures, or if you make a salad like this, take a picture, tag us on social media. Sarah can put the tag in the, if you are on Instagram, Facebook. I would love to see if anybody is actually making the recipes. I think that would be really, really cool. Okay, well, I'll see some of you on Monday, and we'll have some fun. Take care, everybody. Bye.